How you doing, folks? I hope you're smiling and I hope you're happy. Um, yeah, it's not a happy day here. It's raining outside and it's wet and it's muddy, and yes, that's off-grid life. But when it's raining, I'm in the caravan, the guest wing, the winter store for what is the last of my produce. This is what this gets used for. Has been a bit of a dumping ground, but then I've had a guest come, I'd have a clear out. But now we're talking solar. Part and parcel of doing my, obviously working on the hydro system. I'm still working with that. Everything's coming. To tie that into the solar system, I'm upgrading my solar system. Trying to future-proof myself. What I had, so I say that I had three 250-watt solar panels on the roof of the caravan, coming through into this 150 MPPT controller, going down into a bank of lead acid batteries, which paired up to be 24 volts. 24 volts through an inverter, which was a 3000 watt inverter, to be able to give me sufficient power when needed. Downside: lead acid are crap. If you don't have the budget, yes, they do the job. But I've had these for 2 years. I've used them as and when I need to use them over 2 years, but they're basically dying, and I have limited power with those. Fortunately, I do have another little system on the hut, as explained in previous years, so I can balance it a little bit, but then I'm having to juggle with this and juggle with that. And then in the winter months, days like today, very little solar, so then I have to fire up the Lister generator, which is burning diesel. That costs me money. So the whole process of trying to upgrade my energy system is, in the summer I don't have to worry because I have plenty of sunshine. In the winter I don't have so much sunshine, hence I'm going to have the hydro system operational, so that can then complement the lack of sun in the winter months, and to give myself a more efficient source of electricity. The sort of standard inverters that you buy for, I mean, £100, £150, sometimes things like, they, when switched on, are on, and they are consuming electricity even if you're not using it. So it's a drain on your battery bank. So in part and parcel, the investment program. What I'm doing, hopefully with this video, is to show you how I'm upgrading into it's going to be a 48 volt system, and I'm going to have 15,400 or 15,500 kilowatts of power. And in part and parcel, I have added another solar panel, which I had, which meant getting some angle iron, cutting it, shaping it, welding it, so that I can mount the panel at the right angle with the other panels. They are all the same panels because I bought them all at the same time, because you shouldn't mix and match your panels. So I've put the fourth one up for now. I will get another 4 and add to that, so I'll end up having an 8 panel system, and it will be somewhere between 2,000 2,500 watts of solar energy coming in. But so we're going to have to remove all of this to replace with things like this one: bigger, better, new, improved. It's Victron. This is the 250/70. It's set up for 48 volts. That's a smaller one, and it's only 12 or 24 volts. Ideal for campers, caravans, etc. But and off grid. But I want something a little bit more meaty, so bought one of these. Along with that, we have the Victron Multi Plus. That's the inverter. That's a 3,000 watts inverter, very intelligent. And the beauty of that, yes, that costs a lot more money. That one cost me about £180. This one cost me nearly £500. But the beauty of it, it's very intelligent, and if there isn't a demand on it, it goes to sleep and just sends out a little pulse to see if it's needed, which means it's using a lot less energy. And then we've going for these, which are all in these boxes here. 3.2 volt, 305 amp hour cells, lithium LiFePro 4s. It's a far cheaper way, if you have the knowledge or have someone that's got knowledge, to be able to give yourself a lot of lithium power for a lot less money. Basically, I mean, I did these cells. I got from a company called Fogstar in the UK. Great company, great technical support, great advice. And I'm obviously trying to get a bargain. I did mention that I do the YouTube channels. No, this is not sponsored by Fogstar or anything like that, but they did give me a discount. So I saved a little bit of money. But there's just about £1,000 worth of cells here to make a 48 volt system. It's 16 cells. And I said, obviously, I would give them a review. I am aware of the company. I've used them in the past. They are very good. So if ever you want to show, I'll try and remember. I'll put a link in the description. Mention my channel. You might get a bit of discount. No, I'm not guaranteeing it, but it's always worth a mention if you can save a couple of quid. And with those, we then have the BMS, which is the brain. This will be strapped up to all the batteries and control and monitor all the cells. We then have a lot of other little bits and pieces. I'll explain all that as we do it. Hopefully, no, I'm not a guru on it. I do have an understanding of solar. I wouldn't say it's professional, but I do have the ability of phoning a good friend who is very conversant with solar energy. He also lives off grid, so I can tap into his resource as well. If you're not competent, I say don't try. If these things go bang, one, lithium, as we know, if they catch fire, they burn, and they burn ferociously. You can't put them out. Two, if you make a mistake and you do something like that, you've just cost yourself a fortune. But basically what we're going to do is I'm going to make a board up. This is only a temporary setup because, as in the previous video, I've got some projects going. And I'm going to be working on them this year, and hopefully it'll be exciting. And this system is actually, all of this system is going to be moved. But being that these batteries are knackered now, I am going to set the system up so that I have something in the meantime, because the time scale for me to move all of this system is a little too far down the road, and these batteries are dying. So there we go. Let me show you how I do it with the knowledge I have and the support I have from the end of a phone. But I'm going to be ripping this out, putting in a board to mount this. This one is going to replace that one. Then that one is actually going to go up into the hut, because the MPPT controller that I've got up there is not as efficient as a Victron. Yes, I've used that word a few times now, and there's a lot of blue stuff around me. No, it's not cheap, but it is extremely good. So I actually do think it's worth the investment if you can afford to do it. Anyway, enough from me whittling on like this. Let me show you what I'm doing. As we get started on this, as you can see, it's a case of be careful in obviously disconnecting all the batteries. I'm not trying to teach anybody to suck eggs, but what I'm doing is I am disconnecting each battery completely in turn, just so that we can ensure they don't arc up and don't go bang. I mean, it can happen if you get it wrong, but the achievement is to just do one at a time and taking off each cable, making sure it ain't touching down, etc, etc. And then there you have it. That's one. Come on, there we come. Right, put the nut on there. But I'm literally just going through one battery at a time, and as I'm doing it, I need a bigger thing on there, just to literally disconnect that one from the next one, disconnect this one, take that one away, and then clear them all out. As you can see, I've now got those 6 out. Bloody great big heavy things. Lithium, the way forward. So I've got them out of there. I've cleaned the area because my new lithium should go in this bit. I've taken the inverter out there, and I've isolated there the solar coming down. I'm going to remove that and relocate the new one to get that so that's isolated in readiness for the multi plus to go down there, and then we go from there with the batteries. It's a long process, but it has to be done methodically, correctly, and there is no point in trying to rush a job like this, because if it goes wrong, it can go horribly wrong. Right, another day, and here we go. As you can see up here, I've installed the new 250 amp, 70 amp controller. That's the master switch, so I've isolated the solar panels so nothing can be harmed in that respect. And due to the caravan walls being thin, got out a little base here, got a bit of scrap board, because this is only temporary, so I'm not, it doesn't have to be precise for me. And on the back of the MPP, the inverter, I'll tell you why, you can see it there, but there's a bracket that you can just slot it onto. Then obviously you've got 4 fixing screws. So what I've done, found a bit of old scrap metal, and then with the process cut that so that is on the floor, so because that's quite weight, that unit's quite weighty. So what I'm doing is putting the weight straight down through that board, and so that this is only a very thin wall, there's a lot of screws in here just to hold it back. This metal bar is to hang it, and to give it a little bit of space, what I've done, I've got just an old nut, put the nut underneath it, which is going to, this is not going to go according to plan now because I'm doing it on video. And then we just make sure the nut's there, because then there's a space behind it. And what I'm going to do, get my drill ready, get me level, to make sure that when that top bar is level, right, so that's now level, so I shall put in, and those 3 screws, and they're going through the metal, through the bolt, through the board, and into the wall of the caravan. And then once it's hooked up, I can screw the unit to the actual board. I'll say I'm not getting too concerned about how pretty this is at the moment, because this is only temporary. And then what we do is get the unit, and with a little bit of luck, because this is actually, it's quite bloody heavy. And there we go. That's that inverter set up in place. Yes, I've just got to, it's nice and level. Just make sure that, yeah, it's there. Right, so we've got that, that's on the level. I'll get a couple of screws in a minute because I don't have them at hand. I don't think these are going to be long enough. No, I'm going to have to get a couple of longer screws. Might have one. Give me a chance. I think we can do that. So I can get these two secured in the bottom. Just to stop that from coming off. Now, in principle, don't get me wrong, I may be wrong, but that is not going anywhere now, and it'll only be there for maybe a couple of months. So I've got the batteries in situ, not connected. I'll show you that in a minute. But there we have. So what will happen is I'll have cables coming from here down to here, and obviously from the battery up. This is the clever bit. Right, catch you in a minute. Lithium power. As mentioned earlier, each cell is 3.2 volts. So prismatic cells, the EVE batteries. So very good quality. You kind of get what you pay for. What I'm in the process now is collating this battery bank. As you can see just here, I've made, using 2 threaded rods, 2 bits of wood, I'm making a clamp, because you need to compress them, because when they charge, they'll heat up a little bit and they expand in the middle. But by gentle compression, it stops that from happening, which in principle extends the cycle life of the cells. But what you've got to do is get these epoxy sheets, and what we do is we have to put one in between each cell. It's a heat proof barrier, so the heat doesn't transfer, and even though we're compressing and keeping them all together, they are still isolated. And these particular ones, these ones that I've got, they are 315 amp hours each, which will give me a total of 15,100 and something kilowatt hours of power, which is a lot to us simpletons. But then all we're doing, we're just literally getting through this, putting these in here, so that we can start to compress them, get the actual battery bank stuck together, and compress them together. So I shall carry on with this and get it compressed, and then we'll get on to the stage where, using the buzz bars, I have to alter a couple of them, because that's a buzz bar there, and when you connect them, we connect them like that, and they fit perfectly when they're compressed like that. But because I'm not going in one line, I'm coming into 2 rows, they don't quite match up there. So what I have to do is drill a hole in there just so that they can connect. Anyway, I shall leave you with that for a minute. Let me get on with it, and I shall show you the next stage. And here we make tails, because we need tails to go from the MPPT down to the batteries, and from the batteries up to the inverter. And it has to be a good gauge cable. Please check specifications, people. This is 35mm, called a multi-stranded, which is the ideal size for me. We have a slight issue. I call it a slight issue. It's not a slight issue. I've done this for years, never had a problem. This is how I crimps. It's one of those things, a little bit of faff, but it's not like I'm crimping stuff on a regular basis. If I was, I would obviously buy a proper crimp and a proper press. But all we do is get a bolt. I'm using a 6mm gutter bolt, and in the vise we literally wind it up as tight as we can, like that. Pick out the bolt so we don't lose it, and that is, believe me, is not going anywhere. As you can see, it's got that little pinpoint, it's got that point pushing in. That is going nowhere. Despite, oh, you've got to do it properly, you've got to have the right crimping tools. I've had this discussions many times. I shall probably, in my lifetime here, maybe crimp another 4 lugs. Is it worth paying out that £100 odd for those really fancy presses, crimp pliers? No. Little hand ones, they do small ones a treat. They don't do things this size. And when I went to get the 35mm cable required, I only had red in stock. And because I only had red, they said they'd give me a discount. And what you can see here is obviously red cable, black tape. Black insulation tape as opposed to heat shrink. Does the same job. But because we have now, we got 2 red ones. There's red tape on this one, black tape on that one. But obviously that's still red. So to identify the two, leave that one red, and then about every 6 inches I'll just put a black ring around it so that I can identify the difference between positive and negative. No, it doesn't meet with requirements and health and safety, but you won't get a better, I mean, you'll get, you know, that crimp is extremely secure, it's not going anywhere, and you have to be really daft to confuse these 2 tails. And then I've also got, for the, which I've made off, is some 32 amp multi-stranded flex into 2 tails, to go from the MPPT down to the inverter, to the batteries. And I've done, which I'll show you in a second, I've done exactly the same process, and because that cable happens to be black. So there we have. Now, shall we play spot the difference, people? Which one's positive, which one's negative? And then the same here with these. The black one, we've got the red rings on, and the black one, nothing. Then where I put the lugs on this end, red for net positive and black for negative. On the other end, what I've done is used all 3 cores, stripped them, twisted them together. They will be cut short to suit the fitting, and again, red and black. The ratings on these cables are more than suffice for what I need. Anyway, let's get back to connecting all the batteries up. Let me put these over here a minute. Now we've got all the tails ready, and I've compressed these batteries. Not hellishly compressed, just gently compressed. Now it's time to add the brain. JKBMS, Battery Management System. I don't know if you don't know much about that side of life, but what you have is this will monitor each cell, and I've got 16 of them, via sensor cables, which will go onto each positive terminal of each cell. In this ribbon, which I've already got crimped off with little lugs using a proper crimping tool, and then this one, of which, as you can see, there's still multiple strands, but what I need is, that one is for positive supply, and then you count from this side that way, so I need 2 more, which I've already crimped off. So these ones need to be pulled out. You can't have the connector in there because it will confuse the BMS. They do simply pull out, but they are glued in, as you can see. Just pull out. A little bit of effort, but they are excess to requirement. And now I will just double check. Yeah, everything is blank in there now, so we are ready to connect this lot up and connect the BMS up. Simple as, because I mean these 315, I think I might have said 305 earlier, but these are 315 amp hour batteries. I've drilled this one out because, as we're just going to loosely connect for now, is positive to negative, because you can see the different colours. The black is a positive and the grey colour is the negative. But to build up the 3.2s, because 3.2, 3.2, it comes to 48, whereas that's 51 volts or whatever, which is the nominal max voltage. All we're going to do, everything is safe, but to make sure that one I need up the end, to make sure that every one goes on, and you do double check every time. Positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative, all the way through. And then once we've got, I shall do this side down, positive to negative. Hold on, let me get some more. Positive to negative, positive to negative. And then what you've got is you've got 2 empty ones down the end here. One's a positive, one's a negative. And at the moment, 2 empty ones here. But I'm going to link those 2 with this one, where I've had to adjust the distance between the gaps. And that's positive to negative. There we go. Then, in theory, what we do, obviously put a nail on each one, tighten them up. But prior to that, what we've got to do is get these in order. This supplies this end here, on that one, the black one, that's to feed into the BMS. These now are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 14, and then I've got 15 and 16 on the other ribbon. So what I'm going to do now is go around clockwise. Each one of these goes on a positive. And then I'm just going to put a nut on, just loosely for now. And it'll look bloody horrible, it'll look horrendous to be honest with you. But just make sure each one goes on in order. One, two, three, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, or hopefully see, again, I've neatened it all up, tie wrapped all the cables, just so it's there. Downside, it's very messy here. This is only because it's the temporary, it's not in the final position. I will, when I set it up properly, it will all be tailed off nice and neat. But keep it nice and neat and tidy. Now I've gone round, just hand tight, just a pinch tight, not overly tight, pinch tight. You don't need any great force on them. But that lot now is connected up with the cables here, so that will go to the BMS. Well, sorting out the BMS, yeah. Yes, it's a Chinese BMS, JK BMS, comes with great reviews and quite highly regarded. Downside, instructions, everything's kind of in Chinese, and my Chinese, it goes as far as ordering egg fried rice really. So a lot of brain searching and head scratching went on, and I didn't video it because Mid was so into doing that and then jumping onto YouTube, phoning me mate, blah blah. But finally we had the BMS correctly connected up. It is challenging. I mean, I found it challenging, but I am a determined character and generally stubborn enough to succeed. So I shall give you a quick rundown of how I finished off. No, this isn't the finished article per se, because as I've explained, it will be moving in probably a couple of months. But I now have 15,000 or 15 kilowatts of power, which is 6 times more power than I had on my hut for the last 10 days. So I shall give you a run through of what I've done, how I've done it, and to say, yes, we have the power. And that's the BMS now, all wired up. The 2 looms in the bottom there. The black cables on another connector here. These are temperature sensors, which will be down beside the batteries. There's a safety feature for the batteries. The start button, which was giving me the biggest head scratch, was this had to be connected in, and it was a physical manual start. Once that had happened, yeah, we were in business, but there was a lot of head scratching going on. And I will say the Tourette's level of life was quite strong too. So we then have the power from the batteries going through the isolator, so that I can isolate maintenance, emergencies, whatever. I can isolate the batteries. I have an isolator, which if I show you up there, that isolates the solar panels from the MPPT controller. And as you can see, the MPPT controller is working. I've got 52.2 volts of power in my batteries at the moment. And then we have these 2 cables. They run down to the batteries, and the cables from the batteries run up into the inverter. As you can see, there's one of the black rings to a positive and negative. And then from there we have this cable wired in to the AC in port of the inverter. That's if I need to run a generator to charge my batteries up. And this cable here runs into this distribution box here, one of the bits I thought I had and didn't, which I had to wait for. So I now have power on. I'm only using one outlet at the moment, which is a 32 amp, and that goes into a weatherproof, just as a temporary thing, with double socket. It stays in here. Again, that's got an RCD protection as well. Going into a lead, which that takes power up to my hut. So there, with my 16 cells of 3.2 volt, 315 amps per cell, giving me the 15,000 watts of power. To the headache, I almost thought it would have been easier just to buy the bloody batteries, but doing it this way with the self-built, bit of education along with the BMS, to have the amount of power that I have now, would have cost me an extra £1,400 just to get sufficient in 12 volt batteries. So I've saved myself £1,400, given myself a headache, but I've learned, which is the important thing. I've learned, I've educated myself, I've been educated, and I've achieved. But there you have it. That is my new solar setup for the moment. Obviously, up to 3,000 watts of power I can pull off of that at any one time, which is sufficient for what I need. And I now have an efficient solar setup that is more than capable for my, hopefully, everyday requirements. Yes, it took me quite a bit longer than I thought. No, I hadn't organised myself sufficiently and got all bits required, or checked I had the right bits and get them, etc. My error. Regarding putting all this together, yes, it was very challenging, and I'm not going to deny it, it was challenging, but it's doable. You know, I'm not proficient with solar energy. I know the basics of how to make solar work, etc. One of the difficulties was setting up the MPPT controller. I didn't realise, typical man, didn't read the paperwork, but there's a little adjustable dial on the bottom of the MPPT controller, and it was set at a factory setting for gel batteries, and it needs to be set for obviously lithium batteries. That was a bit of a challenge, working out what's what and what setting it was on, etc. But I got there. Don't ever think you can't. There were moments I didn't think I could, but I've got there. I have a fully functional solar system, 1,000 watts of solar at the moment, which that's going to be improved on when I move it. And I've got a massive amount of power. Yes, it has cost me quite a bit of money as the initial investment. For those of you going, oh, your electricity is not free. No, it's not free. You know, you've got to invest in this. And once you've done the investment, as the years roll on, your electricity bill, as such, just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So there you go, folks. Sorry for the long video. Hopefully it was informative. Please, if you've got any questions, put them in the comments section below. I will do my best to answer them, but I will reaffirm to you guys, I am not a professional solar installer. I have common sense, I have reasonable knowledge, and I felt very competent to be able to do so because I had a friend on the end of the phone if I needed it, of which I did. But there we have it. Sorry for the long one. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you've put up with me for this long. Chicken logo's up in the right hand corner there, and we'll give you an easier one next time. But that is me with solar energy and a happy man because I've got bags and bags of power now. Take care, folks. Keep smiling. Keep being happy. You know you want to. Take care.